How's it going, everybody? My name is Bo, and I'm a home theater and movie enthusiast. And this is part 4 of my video series where I'm building a replica of an SVS PB-3000 subwoofer. I was planning on this being the final, part in this video series, but I'm at about 55 minutes of edited footage right now without the intro. And I'm like, no way anybody's going to watch an hour-long video. So I'm going to cut it in two. And this one's going to start right where the last video left off, and then take it to getting the subwoofer ready to get primed and then painted. So I do want to say a few things before we get into it. First off, I've talked to SVS twice now, and they just absolutely will not sell individual components for subwoofers, so I do not recommend wasting your time building this cabinet if you don't already have the woofer and the amp board. I got mine from a SB3000 subs, and I just wanted ported subs. So as a hobbyist who likes to occasionally build things, I thought it would be fun and challenging to build subwoofers. And I built the first one earlier this year back in March. Here's the build vlog series I did with that. And it turned out decent, but there was room for improvement. I had leftover materials and all the tools I had purchased to make that subwoofer, so I decided to try again. And this one was a little bit beefier and more square, like I said in the other videos. It just turned out a better build, and I wanted to, make the finish better, which I did, but I didn't quite do exactly what I said I was going to do, but you have to find out in the final part. Also, the subwoofer's already done. I'm breaking it in right now. I got Dune Part 2 playing at lower volumes, just kind of break it in. And so it's already done. So no need to type out long comments telling me what I should do, what I did wrong. I was just trying to replicate the PB-3000 as close to it as I could, and I feel like I did that. Other than the color scheme, I feel like I nailed it with everything else, and that was my goal. I'm not, based on another comment I got on my previous video, I'm not looking to improve upon what SVS did and so-called well-known issues with like the port tube X, being raised up off the surface of the front of the sub. I don't care about any of that stuff. My first build turned out great. This one turned out even better. And I might even run dual subs now. I'm not sure. You have to watch this video to find out what the holdup is there. But anyway, with all that out of the way, let's pick up where we left off right after part 3. And then we'll take it up to the end. And then obviously you'll have to stay tuned for the final part coming in a couple weeks, hopefully. So with that, let's get to the build. So we're back in the workshop. Subwoofer hasn't moved since the end of part 3. If you haven't seen that, check it out. I'll put a tab in the top corner of this video. This is part 4, and the weather's been crappy, so I haven't been able to do much except edit the footage I've recorded. And before I haul this thing outside and show you my setup, I'm just going to go over what these are. Now, initially, it was one big piece that replicated the outer dimensions of the subwoofer. It was 6 inches thick, so it was a full rectangle. I ripped it this way to 2 3/4 thick pieces, and then I took those halves and I cut into 4 separate corners. Now, these are going to go like this and like that, and they're going to be on the front and the back, and they're going to get clamped really tightly. And I'll show you. And imagine the subwoofer is going to be, that's the bottom, so it's going to be 90 degrees, but I'll just shoot for demonstration purposes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clamp, the one corner and on that end, so when I'm routering, I'm going to start here with the router and then move into the actual subwoofer cabinet. The reason I want to do that, and I did this on my first build, is you got that ball bearing guide And if that even just slightly starts to go around the corner, I will also put a radius here and completely ruin that edge. So this is just going to be basically a guide, and you know, it's going to router and go into there, and then when I get done and remove this, there's going to be a corner radius there, and then it's just going to be a sharp edge because of using this as basically a runway, if you will, for the router. So that's what I'm going to do, and so I got to get this out, and I'll show you the setup and how I'm getting everything prepped, and then I'll show the actual routing of the corner radius. So we'll see you outside. All right, I'm going to be brief because there was a break in the weather, but now that I get it all set up, there's some gray clouds coming, so it's probably going to rain. I should have just moved it in the garage, but it was sunny, blue sky for the last 10 minutes as I was getting this done. As you can see, here's my runway pieces. Got them locked in. I also made this so I can set the depth of the router and the radius tested on this first. I'm going to do it in 2 or 3 passes, not to try to take it all in one. And I still have to do the bottom, so I think I'm just going to have to get the top done and then probably move everything into the garage. So I'm going to set it up on the tripod, and hopefully it goes well. Wish me luck. We'll see you on the flip side. So 2 things. One, it really looked like it was going to start pouring, and also I think my router's dying. I got one edge mostly done. I wanted to just go one little bit lower, and just like with the port openings, it leaves that raised spot that I have to sand. But I was going to take one more pass, and the router started throttling down. I've had this thing over 20 years. I never had to do any maintenance, and this bit is a giant bit, and it's probably too much for its old bones, but I might try to get the final pass on this side, which you can't really see that great, and then go to Home Depot and possibly get a new router. Hopefully try to find one with the same holes so I can use my custom router plate. But yeah, I'm just gonna try to get these, at least the top, done, and we'll see. So I guess wish me luck again. We'll see in a second if it worked or not. All right, I'm gonna go for it, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, it definitely sounds like there's some metal on metal, but push through. And yeah, it did a nice job. I gotta do a little sand. There's just a little lip there, which last time on my first build I went even deeper than that, and I was able to sand it nice. But yeah, there's a few little ripples there, but just going to hand sand it and then flip it over and do the other side. So yeah, I'm gonna go grab some sandpaper. I don't have any down or out here, and we'll show a little of that. I'm not going to show the rest of the sanding. I'll just flip it over, router the bottom edges, and we'll pick up after that. And before I routered the bottom edge, I had to reclamp down the subwoofer and then clamp on and position the runway pieces, which is actually a little bit tricky and time consuming. So what I found was to get it just kind of in close proximity where it's going to be, get the clamps, the top clamp reasonably snug, and then use a rubber mallet to, you know, just fine tune it. As you can see, just happened. Even with some decent pressure, it'll still move if you hit it hard enough, and then, you know, just to the touch, once it feels smooth, you know, just really reef down the clamps so they wouldn't slip when I'm routering. So that was that, and all set. All right, here I will do some commentary for the last edges on the bottom. I just edited it down to just showing 2 passes instead of the 3, but it's a better angle. You can actually see the ball bearing of the router bit right along the edge there, and you know how I use the runway piece as a starting point. Got a nice straight line, as you saw in the first one, and as I show on this second one here. Just MDF dust going everywhere, so before I moved on to sanding, I decided to get the leaf blower out and just get some of it out while I had the garage door open, because I shut it in a little bit to get a little bit better light on the sanding. Well, the old girl got the job done. She sounded pretty rough. I closed the garage door so I actually get some better light to show. So this is without sanding, and you can see the runway piece, you know, just how crucial that was. So now I just sand that lip down. Battery's getting low on the camera, so I'm just going to finish this up off camera, and then we'll get her unclamped and carry it back down the stairs, and hopefully don't put any dings in it. All right, we'll see you when we get down there. All right, we're back down in the basement, and got dark real fast out. It was cold, it was raining, so got the garage cleaned out. It was, even though I only did half, I only did the bottom edges in the garage, it still was covered. I kept getting stuff in my eyes, so, you know, it is what it is. It's over with, and I'm about to put the sealer on the corners. I just wanted to show why I made this piece to test, and I screwed it down so that it wouldn't move. So this was when I did the top, I set the depth, and then when I did the bottom, just ever so slightly deeper, but wasn't enough to worry about. But that way I could see what it was going to do before I actually did some permanent thing to the subwoofer, and, you know, no going back. So I like to go just that slightly bit below and then sand it. I think that leaves a better edge or better radius. So I'm gonna get the tripod set up. I'll just show you putting on the sealer, and then after like an hour, sand it down, put another coat on, and then after that, I'll probably sand the entire subwoofer one last time. And I think, yeah, I gotta do sealer on the sides again, but the top and bottom and front and back are already pretty much good to go. So yeah, let's get to that. And you know, it's just exciting to be back at this stage. I remember when I was at this point on my first build, getting those radiuses done was like completely transformative. Finally looks like a PB-3000, and you know, not too far away from getting a finish on it, letting it dry for plenty of time, and then getting the components in there. But anyway, let's get to putting on the sealer and call it a night. So the first thing to do is just open up the can, stir, and then use some foam brushes to apply it. So let's do that. This stuff has like a milky white consistency and look. Just give it a stir. And now that it's stirred, I can apply it to the subwoofer, and on this like raw edge of the corner radius, or even any of the edges of MDF, it really absorbs this liquid quite a bit. So it takes several coats versus like the smooth top and bottom of the MDF. After like 2 coats, it's like a really glossy finish, really smooth. But with the edges, it's, you know, you got to sand in between, do like 3-4 coats, and you still see a little bit of texture, which I hopefully will address with the primer. But here's the other side, and just, you know, wipe up some excess, but again, it's not that important. I'm going to redo the whole subwoofer after I do these corners. But yeah, that's a look at applying the sand sealer. Alright, with the top edges done, I'll flip it upside down after a few minutes to let that dry, and then do the bottom, and then I'm gonna do both sides, but I ain't gonna show that. And yeah, the next thing we'll probably show is just being completely done with the sealer application and sanding and getting ready for primer. So who knows when that'll be. I might take a few days off from this project. For me, it's gonna be a couple days, maybe a week, but for you, it'll be probably 2 seconds from now. All right, we'll see you when we get there. And I'm back, and it's been more than a few days. It's been actually 2 weeks. Unfortunately, in Michigan here, got hit with some winter storms, high winds, freezing temps, snow. So really all I have left to do is, you know, spray, prime the thing, and it's just too cold. I did a little bit. I'll talk about that. I got the sides with the sealer on. I still got a sand, and you know, just taking my time. I got a bit of texture showing through here on the radius, so I've been testing with this piece with primer, and I actually used some wood filler thinned out to kind of fill and then sand. Not exactly sure if I'm going to do that for this. I'm going to use some thicker filler primer. Now I left this end was basically the same. You can see some texture. So I'm hoping with the filler primer it'll fill those in, and then some light sanding. So I'm going to do some tests with this and hopefully try to achieve like a smooth finish with the wall color. This, I just recently put a matte clear coat on this, but I sanded this and did all this like 8 months ago, and I'm not exactly sure how many layers that was or what's, you know, how I achieved that. So I'm gonna have to try to get this on here, so you know, when I go to do the final finish on the sub, you know, I'm confident in the process. So yeah, with even with the cold, I did take the subwoofer outside and I taped off this outer edge, and this got a couple coats of primer, maybe 3 coats of sandable primer, 2 or 3 coats of a the wall color perfect match spray paint, and then a couple coats of matte clear coat. And yeah, it's been, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 weeks ago, I can't remember when I did this, but it's super smooth, and it's going to have plenty of time to be fully cured by the time I mount the woofer to it, so there's going to be no chance of it sticking to the paint or anything, which is what I wanted. So I'll just tape this whole area off when I primed the main sub. But I had a little issue here. My spray can, I thought it just lost all pressure, but the nozzle got clogged. They hooked me up. They sent me a replacement can and replacement nozzles, so now I have an extra can. But it got clogged up, and I couldn't get a proper coat. Plus, I didn't have this taped off very good. So I'm going to finish these first, because it's going to be easier to put tape on the outside of this, and then block the front. And then I can obviously tape off the woofer opening, and then I can prime the whole sub. But now I have to tape off the subwoofer so I can paint the port openings. And here you can see my ridiculously overboard tape job, but I just cut the masking tape into thin strips and just meticulously went around and tucked it under the lip right there that I sanded into these 1/4 inch thick discs before I glued them down. I sanded the back side to create a lip because I knew I wanted to have a better paint line than on my first build. So I'll get those painted once I get it upstairs, but in the meantime, I'm going to flip the sub over and address the back so that can get that prepped and everything as well. So we'll get to that right now. So with the sub flipped over, we can look at the back now, and what I'm going to try to do is I put a couple extra coats of the sealer on this lip because it's the edge of the MDF. Now I have a nice smooth transition here, but there's still a bit of texture no matter how many coats I put on. Not as bad on the side because it's a different sheet of MDF. It was denser, but on the top and bottom it's kind of the same story. So I'm going to take 220, I'm going to sand the whole thing, get it roughed up, and then I'm going to try this filler primer, which I've never used. I don't know how much it's going to fill, but I'm going to go 1 coat around the edge, let that dry, possibly do a quick sand in between, and then I'm going to do a heavier coat and cover the whole thing. I need, most of this filler primer is going to be for the long edges, but anyway, I'll get that sanded, show you that, and then we'll go out to the garage and we'll do some priming. Here's a look at the sanding. I didn't go like super heavy with it. It's just 220, which is pretty fine, but I didn't want to sand off a bunch of the sealer. You know, maybe a professional painter would tell me I should go coarse, but yeah, we'll get outside, do a prime coat, and see how it turns out. But to find out how it turned out, you're gonna have to tune in for the final part. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.